What's up, guys? It's Tony here, and welcome back to Man Cave Studios for Pits and Riffs, episode number 11. Yes, 11 episodes. That's how deep we are into the series. This is the final episode of the calendar year. The plan is to continue it into 2026. This was a series that I started back in April on a different YouTube channel with no real intention in mind, which is kind of just the way that I function. I start things with no intentions and just keep doing them as long as I kind of feel like doing them. And this is just another one of those things. And it's been great so far. And so I'm going to keep doing it. I really enjoy doing this series. So here we are, episode 11. And I'm wearing a Rush shirt today. And I was thinking about this before I started filming. But I'm wearing a Rush shirt because that is the one group that I did not plan on talking about until about 10 seconds before I turned on the camera and hit start recording. But I realized that I never told the story of this shirt. So, not even buying it or anything like that, but I have a fantastic story for you regarding this shirt. So this is the R40 shirt. I got this in Philadelphia. I can't point right, but I got this in Philadelphia at the R40 tour. It was my second to last concert because my dad and I went to see them in Newark 2 days later. That's where they played Losing It. That is the only time that they played Losing It that was not professionally recorded, because they recorded the time in Toronto for the DVD, the whole R40 set, and they also recorded the New York set. And they played it, I think, 4 times total. Twice in Toronto, once in New York, and once in Newark. But anyways, so this shirt, I got it in Philadelphia, right? I went to see R40 in Philadelphia, June 25th, 2015. So I went to Cleveland back in June. The vlog's on this YouTube channel to prove it. I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, saw some Rush stuff in there, vlogged basically exclusively Rush stuff because that's all I could really stomach. I also submitted Dream Theater as a band that should be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know that's a long shot and it's not going to happen, but the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is kind of a mess right now anyway. It's not really even rock and roll anymore. But anyway, so I'm walking to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, and I see a guy ahead of me, and he's wearing this exact shirt, which I think is crazy. So I catch up to him, and I'm like, hey, I like your shirt, just kind of joking around, and he's like, hey, I like yours too. And then I forget if I asked him or if he asked me where the other was from, but whoever was asked responded Philly. And I think it was me. I think he asked me where I was from, and I said Philly, and he was like, "No way, I'm from Philly too." And we found out that we both went to that same concert, and that's just crazy. Like, just a crazy coincidence that at that exact moment, 2 people wearing the same shirt that went to the same concert 10 years ago were walking to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. How nuts is that? So yeah, that's my Rush story. That's me talking about Rush today. But anyways, let's get into the very start of this episode with new riffs. Let's talk about some new riffs. Really, the only one I have to talk about is kind of the verbal review of the Spiritbox concert I went to a few weeks ago, which counts as a new riff. I kind of use this segment to review concerts now, so I'm going to keep doing that. So Spiritbox played in a convention center in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It was a 2.5-hour drive, a drive that I wasn't going to make because I had work the next morning, until I realized back in May. So this requires a little bit of a backstory. So I work in sports broadcasting at Rider University, which is near Trenton in New Jersey. And Devin Townsend was playing in New York City on May 9th this year. That was a Friday night. And I am from nowhere near New York City. But I have seen Devin once, and he was not coming anywhere near Philly, and the next day he was going to be in Maryland, but I couldn't go to that concert the next day, and I'll tell you why in a second. And so Devin's playing in New York City, and my dad and I get tickets And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this could be a real, like, serious mistake because I have work the next morning. My job at Ryder the next day was Ryder was hosting the conference track and field championships. So I had to be there at 8 in the morning. So Devin Townsend is playing on May 9th with Tesseract, who I'm actually like a really big fan of now. I mean, one of these episodes is going to feature a Tesseract album, probably the first one, because I really like that album. Concealing Fate, I kind of go in sequential order. You know, like I'll listen to an album and just kind of listen to it on repeat for a month and won't listen to anything else by that artist. And then, so I'll go from that. So I started with one by Tesseract, and then I went to Altered State, and then Polar, I don't know. And now I'm on Sonder or Sonder. I don't know. I don't know how you pronounce these album names, but you know, you get my point. And next is going to be War of Being. I don't know when I'll start listening to that, but I saw that concert. Um, and my dad and I ate at a Burger King at midnight that night, and we got home at around maybe 1 in the morning, and then I had to get up 6 hours later and go to work. And I don't function well on 6 hours of sleep, but it was so worth it because I was front row for Devin Townsend. And so I left work early that day to camp out for 2 hours in the cold rain, to be front row for Devin Townsend in the pit, obviously, because if you're gonna get a ticket, you get it in the pit. This is called Pits and Riffs for a reason. So yeah, so I realized that I did that, and then I realized that, okay, well, if that was my standard, then I have no excuse for not going to the Spiritbox concert, because at least I get to sleep in a little bit the next day. You know, 2 hours driving south from New York City versus 2 hours driving east from Lancaster. There's really no difference. I got home at 1 in the morning and I had to wake up at 9 o'clock the next morning and go to work, but that's still 8 hours of sleep right there. And I'm 25 years old. I can do it. So I wasn't going to go to this concert, and then I very much did. And I did not regret it one bit. Spiritbox started off this concert, and they played exclusively songs from Tsunami Sea for the first better part of the set. The first 6 songs of the set were all off Tsunami Sea. And I really wish they would have kept going, but I understand why they didn't. I think the set list flowed very smoothly. So they start with those 6 songs, which, by the way, Fata Morgana is just a fantastic song, by the way. That is my favorite song off Tsunami Sea, which Tsunami Sea itself is just it's definitely a top 2 album for me this year. Number 1, I would say, is probably Parasomnia by Dream Theater. But this is a very close second. So they play the first 6 songs off that album. Also, the break. So if you've never seen a concert video of Spiritbox playing Black Rainbow, they get to the peak of that song and they pause for about 20 seconds and then they hammer it home. And it's the most fantastic thing. Like, whoever thought of doing that in the band is a genius, because like that is just fantastic. No, I've never heard that by any other artist before. So they do that. They do the 2 loaded songs, Fata Morgana and Black Rainbow. They get to Perfect Soul, which is the mainstream little piece. Keep Sweet, which is also pretty mainstream, but that's not even a knock. Like, their songs, even their mainstream-ish type, you know, like elements of hip hop and whatever else, like Crystal Roses, they're pretty good songs. Then they get to Soft Spine, which is Grammy nominated. They did all 3 Grammy nominated songs of theirs in this set, which I think was fantastic, because I feel like you have to give that to the casual fans, you know? Like, I thought they had a perfect mix of deep digs and on the surface, I guess, no pun intended, sort of songs like Soft Spine, Jaded, Cellar Door. Those are the 3 songs that got nominated for Grammys. So I think that they do a good job in giving the fans what they want in that regard. Then they go from Soft Spine to Tsunami Sea, and that's the last song off that album till the end of the set. They go from that to the two songs off of Fear of Fear, Jaded and The Void, and I said this in the review that I did, which you can find that in the link in the description. But I like how they kind of keep songs from the same album together for the most part. So they'll play Jaded, and then they played The Void right after, and they did the same when they were in Philly back in April. And I really like that. I think that's pretty cool. Then they get into the Eternal Blue songs, all of which I really like. Secret Garden, Circle With Me, and Holy Roller. And they get to, so Secret Garden is a song that I really like. But then they get into basically 5 straight headbangers. Like, they just have so many good songs, and I thought that this part of the set was the best part. Because they go from, especially, alright, Circle With Me is a great song. It has some mainstream elements to it. But starting with Holy Roller, they go to Sew Me Up off Rotoscope, which is the best song and the heaviest song off of that EP. Then they go to Cellar Door, and they go from that to No Loss, No Love. Those are 4 straight bangers right there. I don't know how you beat that. I thought my head was going to clean snap off of my body because I don't hold back. I go to the concerts and I have a good time. I headbang and I'm in the pit because if you're not in the pit, then what are you doing? This is Pits and Riffs. Get out of here. If you're not standing in the pit, I almost said sitting in the pit. If you're not standing in the pit, then what are you doing? But anyways, those 4 songs, back to back to back to back. Holy Roller, Sew Me Up, Cellar Door, No Loss, No Love. That's a lot of heavy. And that's a lot of good heavy right there. Those are some bangers. And then they get into Crystal Roses and then Ride the Wave. I really wish they would have finished on Deep End. I really like Deep End. I guess I'm alone in that because they haven't played it. But hopefully one day they'll play Deep End. Did I say Dead End? Deep End. Hopefully one day they'll play that live. But they end on Ride the Wave. And just this whole set was fantastic. I mean, I like that they played as much as they did from Tsunami Sea. I think the one thing that I really do wish they would do sometimes is pull like Volbeat does this too, but they'll play everything from like a certain album onwards. They won't play anything before a certain album, unless they're like absolute hits. And Spiritbox, their first album was Eternal Blue. Before that, they had some singles. They released as mini albums. The one song I really want to hear live one day is Rule of Nines. But I would like to see them maybe play one of their, really older songs for the fans that have been around for a while. Like Constance or Blessed Be or something like that. Like, those are the types of songs I think you just play one of them, Like, some fans, I understand why, if you're like just a fan of sort of the newer stuff, you wouldn't be open to hearing more than one song pre-Eternal Blue, but just one I would really like to hear. And especially Rule of Nines. That song kills me every time. I love that song so much. But yeah, that was Spiritbox in Lancaster. I have nothing else to say. That was just a fantastic concert. I got home at 1 in the morning. I tried to stop at a Waffle House in Maryland on the way back because I went south to go through Maryland and then take 95 north. And the Waffle House, which was advertised as 24 hours, was closed. And I couldn't believe it because it was about midnight and I was hungry. And so I basically jettisoned through Delaware and half of New Jersey in about less than an hour, and got home and ate some chocolate popcorn. So that was a disappointment. That was the only disappointment that night, was that freaking Waffle House in Elkton, Maryland wasn't open. What are we doing? It said 24 hours on the sign. Come on, guys. But anyways, I'm not pressed. It is what it is. I've got diners in New Jersey. Diner diners have fantastic breakfast. I'm good. I'm chilling. But anyways, let's get into the breakdown. What are we breaking down today? Well, like I said, I'm covering a number of different artists in today's podcast episode. And the second artist that I'm going to, well, technically third, because I talked about Rush already. The third artist I'm going to talk about is Volbeat. So 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, on December 3rd, 2021, I'm pretty sure, Volbeat released an album called Servant of the Mind. It was the follow-up to Rewind, Replay, Rebound, which was a very mainstream type of hard rock, sometimes just regular rock. And that was a follow-up to Seal the Deal and Let's Boogie, which was majority mainstream type rock. And Servants of the Mind comes out in December 2021. And before that, back in September, Volbeat releases the first single, which is Shotgun Blues. And you can tell instantly they're back. This is heavy. This is not going to be like the last couple of albums. This album is going to be straight heavy. And it was. It delivered. This was a return to what people have termed the old Volbeat. Maybe not as heavy as the really early stuff. I mean, like the Strength, the Sound, the songs, Rock the Rebel, Metal the Devil, even parts of Guitar Gangster's Cadillac Blood. I think those were heavier albums, but this was much heavier than the previous two. And I really like this album. So track by track, it starts with Temple of Ankor, which is Middle Eastern style metal. This is a group that has perfected rockabilly and made songs that have bordered on thrash while still being country western, which is just a crazy combination. But they kick this one off with Middle Eastern metal. You know, there's that little sort of Egyptian beat to it, Egyptian riffs, which is funny because the chorus, which is, you know, it ends in Egyptius, but the Temple of Ankor is in Iraq, Iran, one of them, but it's not in Egypt. I'm pretty sure it's Iraq. So yeah, that's what's funny about that. The actual Ankor temple is a sacred building in ancient Sumeria. And I like that, you know, Volbeat does these things with history every now and again, which is pretty cool. It's also known as Duranki, not Durangi, but it's known as Duranki, which translates to mountain house. That's all the lyrics in the first verse of the song. It's the Garden of the Gods. That's also there. And in mythology, this temple is known for where heaven meets earth. And that's basically just the entire first verse of the song. But that's essentially what it is. That's what the Ankor temple is. It's in Iraq, Nippur. Then you get into Wait a Minute, My Girl, which is basically Die to Live Part 2. It's this old kind of retro rock and roll that Volbeat likes to pay homage to now and again. Homage, Tony. They pay homage to it. And I like that they do that. They have these different types of metal, and then the next song is another example of that, The Sacred Stones, which is just doom. But they stay true to their sound. You know, like they're not deviating from who they are. They're not making music that doesn't sound like them. And Wait a Minute, My Girl is just another example of that. Like it sounds like Volbeat, but it's a lot lighter and it's just old school. Like real old school, like 1950s, 1940s type rock and roll with Volbeat's own little twist on it. Then you get into Sacred Stones, which is pure doom, and this song is basically just about Heretic. Blabbermouth describes us as, I guess this is from the band, an earthly being who has committed himself to the dark side. He is on a mission speaking to darker forces and fallen angels. And this is kind of the start of the album within the album. So this album has kind of a theme to it, and you'll sort of get it as it goes on. I wouldn't call it a concept album. I wouldn't even call it a loose concept album, but there's a little bit of a story in certain songs that you get lost a little bit if you listen to the album straight through. But it doesn't have a clear beginning, really. it has kind of a clear ending, and the ending isn't even the last song on the album, but this is kind of the start of that. Then you get into Shotgun Blues, which was the first single off the album. Remember what that came out in September, and that was basically like, oh boy, yeah, this is Volbeat. So the music video, there's a fun thing about the music video, and I like to do track by track to talk about this kind of stuff. And I don't know if you notice, if you go back and watch it now, the same guy who's the main character in that music video is also the main character in By a Monster's Hand. And he's a murderer in that one too. So this guy just plays a murderer in every Volbeat music video. It's pretty crazy. Um, Basically, in the music video, it's set in New York City, 1902, and this guy is sent to the electric chair for allegedly murdering somebody. It looks like he actually does it in the video, but you don't know. Maybe there's hidden meaning. It ends with the guy being almost like free in the end. Now that he's dead, he kind of gets up from the chair and stretches his hands out and starts to walk away. And that's kind of the basis of the lyrics off the song too. You're now leaving. I couldn't roll with you 1 minute to sing the Shotgun Blues. It's basically, being sentenced to the electric chair. You're about to die, and when you do die, then you wind up being free, essentially, which is kind of a weird and maybe backwards way of thinking about it. Then The Devil Rages On, which is another fantastic song. And if you don't headbang to the end of this song, you don't have a pulse. The Devil Rages On, to me, feels like riding a horse through the desert in Arizona up a mountain overlooking a canyon. That's just the way I see it. Now you'll have that image in your head forever. So that is what it is. That's how I feel about it. This is what I got out of the song from the lyrics. What I kind of imagine this is that heaven and hell sort of work in conjunction with each other. That's sort of the message here. With things that are kind of seen as good versus things that are seen as bad being hidden so well that it almost seems like the same thing. So it's almost this balance between heaven and hell and sort of this, okay, well, which are qualities of heaven and which are qualities of hell? And how can you really tell? That's kind of what I got out of the lyrics of this song. I just noticed something funny. So I do these little write-ups for like, these podcast episodes, and I'll type like some notes and stuff just so I can remember. And what's funny are the notes that I wrote, and this is not intentional at all, but the notes that I wrote, this Microsoft Word document has 666 total words. And this is a very Satan and devil heavy type album. So that is a crazy type coincidence. Almost as much as the story I told you about this. This whole episode should just be called Crazy Coincidences, but it's too late now. The title's already up there, so I can't change it. But anyways, let's move on. Say No More is my favorite off the album just because of the riffs, because of how heavy it is. This is about reincarnation, so it kind of detracts a little bit from the concept from the last couple of songs and going back to Sacred Stones. And this is about somebody who knows they've lived a previous life and they have these kind of vague memories of having lived that life, and they're trying to find out more about it and learn from it and maybe even live it again a little bit. Then Heaven's Descent, which kind of gets back into the story of the album, which presents sort of the same theme as Devil Rages On. What's good, what's bad, and how does it really come about? The real part of this that I kind of took this away from is the chorus, the first part of the chorus. Keep on ruling the dark, make us believe that we are heaven's descent, I am on fire, which to me spells like the belief of, how can I have come from heaven if I was born with these sets of morals that are supposed to be wrong? I'm supposed to be a descendant of heaven, yet I feel like I'm on fire. That's kind of what I took out of this song. This is another good one. This is also, Volbeat starts this album, and outside of Wait a Minute, My Girl, it's just straight heavy metal. Like the most recent album, God of Angels Trust, has the little moment where they take a step back in Acid Rain, which I love that song. That's my favorite song off God of Angels Trust. But it's a little bit lighter than the first two, and it's a little bit lighter than the next two as well. Um, but Servant of the Mind is set up to be pure energy from the start, and you get to the seventh track, and it's still energy. So Heaven's Descent is another just one of those songs. Dagen 4 is basically 4 EV Part 2. The title translation in English is The Day Before, and the chorus translates to the day before was everything as a summer flirt, and tomorrow is not endless. So now there's another kind of part of this album going on here. This is kind of an uplifting type of song with sort of this mixed message of living in gratitude and moving on from a previous life, which I kind of see as moving on from, maybe being addicted to something and moving on from your addiction and kind of enjoying life and living it how you really want to be living your life. And this is, like I said, very upbeat, very uplifting, and it's the first song off the album that's not just straight heavy from start to finish. And then that's where the album kind of turns a little bit, because then the next few songs that kind of relate to this story are very much in line with the same thing. The Passenger is one of them. That's the following song after Dagen 4, which is more about embracing the moment, enjoying life while you can, and especially when you're young, and going out and just being alive, which is a great message, especially for young people. That, I think, is still me. I don't know. You be the judge. I'm 25. I've already said that. But yeah, I like this song, especially the riff, like the guitar solo part. I really like that riff. This is one of my favorite songs off the album. Then Step Into the Light, which is an outlier on this album because it's not about anything else that this album really deals with. This is basically the only song of the album that's kind of about war, and it's very obviously about war. It's a sort of tale of a soldier that's dying, that's, been killed in war, and he's standing at the gates of heaven and hearing the words, step into the light, as in, it's time for you to ascend to heaven. It's very descriptive of the violence of war at the same time in the song. The second verse really tells that. Heroes don't kill for fame, religion, or any names, and they cry. Cowards are made of blood. This is the one. Cowards are made of blood. Drain them for what they got. They will cry. That's basically the very violent sort of description of what war really is. Then Becoming, which was another single off the album, and then it sort of comes back to the theme of the second part of this album, which is, similar to Dagen 4 in message. It's about moving on from the past and becoming a new person. My take on the song is, a person who's kind of watching the world burn. The world is kind of going up in flames, but at the same time, this person who maybe previously couldn't ignore that sort of stuff now is just pushing it away and trying their best to live in peace and zen and trying just not to get involved. And I think the best lyric off of this album is on this song. Silence is the best reply to a fool, remember that. And you're not falling, but just a better man. That's very descriptive, and that's very accurate. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room. If somebody's being an idiot, or if somebody's, going out of their way to basically harm you in some way, or, not even harm you, but not be a good person, be somebody who's maybe even toxic to be around, the best thing you can do is just to ignore them. Silence is the best reply to a fool. And even if, you feel like you're losing an argument with this person, you can just kind of be silent and walk away. You haven't lost, you're just the better, bigger man. This song was dedicated to L.G. Petrov of Entombed, and the riffs were also inspired by his. Then Mindlock, which is the 12th song, but also the final song of the story. So this is basically the resolution of that, concept album. It's based off of, focusing on yourself and becoming a better person. Don't pay mind to those who bring you down. Be the type of person who leaves a positive impact as opposed to a negative impact. That's very descriptive in this song. The exact lyric is be the kind who leaves a mark and not a scar. And that's probably one of the other, at least top 5 lyrics on this. Don't be the type of person that, is a burden to everybody, that people hate, that's a burden, just as they exist. But be the type of person who is a good person and leaves a positive impact on others. And basically the message here is be the kind who leaves a mark and not a scar. And then as a result, you find the peace and the balance that you're looking for. Basically as a result of living this way, being quiet, kind of living in Zen, and also being a nice person to those around you. Then you get into the last song of the album, which is Lassie's Birgitta, which is Lassie's Birgitta is an alleged Swedish witch who tried to awaken the dead and swore herself to the devil, and as a result was decapitated. And that was the last major part of the Swedish witch hunt for about 100 years afterwards. And Volbeat does this thing where they find stories like that and they make songs about it. How does this fit into the rest of the album? It really doesn't, but it's a cool song and it's got a great riff and it's, I think, 7 minutes and 2 seconds or something like that. Actually longer, 7 minutes and 56 seconds. So it's fantastic and a great song. Alright, so that's that. That is Servant of the Mind by Volbeat. Fantastic album. This might be I don't know, this one's tough because I really like Outlaw Gentlemen and Shady Ladies, but I feel like this is in that sort of vicinity. And this was the first album that I was really a Volbeat fan for because I've said in the past I discovered Volbeat because they toured with Ghost, and by the time Volbeat and Ghost were actually touring together in Camden in February of 2022, I was actually looking more forward to the Volbeat set than the Ghost set. And when I originally bought the tickets, it was to see Ghost. So I'm very glad that Volbeat toured with Ghost, and this album is very much the type of album that Ghost would want to, that Volbeat would want to represent while touring with Ghost because it's very heavy on devil and Satan and all of this stuff that Ghost is very fond of talking about in their lyrics. When they're not talking about, crying over someone like you. Still hate that. Still hate those lyrics from that last album. But overall, I'm very glad that Volbeat went back to more of a metal feel after 2 consecutive albums that were more rock than metal. And the riffs on this album were also incredible. And I think God of Angels Trust followed in the same sort of line. I think that was kind of a continuation, while also bringing back a little bit of like the really older stuff. In the Barn of the Goat, giving birth to Satan's spawn in a dying world of doom. You gotta say the full name, but that is that's very much like Sad Man's Tongue. That's almost a follow-up to Sad Man's Tongue, which was released like, I don't even know, 15 years ago at this point, probably more. When was that album? 2008. So yeah, like 17 years ago. So it's a 17-year follow-up to that song. But Sad Man's Tongue is an amazing song as well. Alright, so that's that. That's Volbeat. So now we've talked about 3 artists today. Let's talk about one more. The reason why I'm filming this episode today is because I'm a little bit slow. Okay, so I'm not on social media, really, at all, anymore. And the day that I'm filming this has been a fantastic day for one reason, and one reason only. And that's because today, on this, I'll be honest with you about the date. It's December 12th, 2025. On this December 12th, 2025, for the first time in my life, I found out that Ankor is touring in the United States in April and May of 2026. And I have been waiting patiently, very patient, maybe sometimes impatiently. Okay, I'll take that. I have been waiting very, very, very patiently for Ankor to say they're coming to North America. And I didn't care if they were going to be headliners. I didn't care if they were going to play at a festival somewhere in Milwaukee and I was going to have to drive out there. But I've been waiting. I discovered Ankor in September of 2023 on the backs of Prisoner and Oblivion and Darkbeat as well. That was the third song I listened to, but Oblivion and Prisoner were what got me really into Ankor. And after that, like I said earlier in this episode, I kind of go album by album. So when I discover the latest album, I'll kind of go in reverse order. So I did that. I listened to before it was Shogunai, I listened to the 4 songs that were off Shogunai because Stereo came out that October as well. And that is my second favorite song by any artist ever. The only song better than that is Kingdom by Devin Townsend. So I listened to those 4 songs on repeat for months. Then I went back and I listened to White Dragon. And I really liked White Dragon. And then a few months after that, I went back and I listened to Beyond the Silence of These Years, which was the first podcast episode. That was the theme of the first podcast episode I did for Pits and Riffs, was Beyond the Silence of These Years. That was on another channel. That's how long ago that was. It was like 8 months ago, but you get my point. And I kept going back because everything I was listening to was really good. And I liked Beyond the Silence of These Years actually better than White Dragon. And I have a shirt of White Dragon. But Beyond the Silence of These Years was a fantastic album. Probably a top 5 for me ever. But I kept going back. And I went to Last Song for Venus. And it was a different singer, but it was still some pretty solid music. And I kept going back. And I went to My Own Angel. Yeah, I went back that far. I went to 2010, 2011, whatever, to dig up My Own Angel. And it's a completely different style of music by this point. It's very much more power metal. But I love that. I love that album too. That was a great album. Maybe one day, I don't think I've done that one yet, but maybe one day I will. Maybe I did, I don't know. I don't know what albums I've done in the past at this point, to be honest with you. I haven't done that one yet. Maybe one day I will. But, so My Own Angel. That's not all. Oh yes, I went back to Al Fin des Cansar and listened to that for a solid month and didn't understand more than 5 words off of that entire album and still loved it. So, and I've done a video on this channel where I name that Ankor song, and I do struggle with the names of those early songs, but I got some of them. But I know every Ankor song that's ever been released. I'm that level of diehard. And so, Al Fin des Cansar I didn't even get to till January of this year. But I listened to that. And I listened to every album since. And I have been waiting patiently and biding my time and asking the band themselves in comment sections on Patreon when a North American tour is going to happen. And it's always been soon. It's going to happen soon. It's going to happen in 23. It's going to happen in 24. It's going to happen in 25. And it didn't happen. It's coming soon. It's coming soon. But I was okay. I was patient. Especially this past year. I saw like 20 concerts this past year. I saw Dream Theater twice. I saw Spiritbox twice. I saw Volbeat, Ghost, Shinedown. And I'm definitely forgetting another. But so at least 7. I saw Lotus Land too. They're a Rush tribute band. They're fantastic. Check them out. But I didn't. The one band that I really, really, really wanted to see live was Ankor. And finally, after waiting for 2 years, 3 months, and some amount of days, today, I finally had the privilege of buying tickets to an Ankor concert, May 5th, 2026, at the Theater of Living Arts in Philadelphia. They're an opener, but I don't care. They could play one song and I would be happy. And the tickets were not bad. I bought every priority. I bought a parking pass, and I bought a meet and greet off their website. And all things considered, that came out to under $200. Spiritbox, when they play with Evanescence next summer, if you want to be in the pit for that concert, it's $600. That's 3 times the amount. That's no meet and greet, no priority access, not even really a guarantee of being anywhere kind of near the front. The pit in Camden is kind of wonky. $600 to be in the pit. That's ridiculous. If I can't be in the pit, I'm not interested. There's, you could be on the lawn for 80 and whatever. No, I'm not sitting on the lawn. Are you kidding me? This is Pits and Riffs. What do we do here? We stand in the pit, shoulder to shoulder with our fellow heavy metalers, and we headbang aggressively, and we wake up the next morning and the back of our neck hurts, but that's just the price of admission. And so, yes, I am in the pit for Ankor, and hopefully that is the one that I really, desperately want to be at the very front for. I was content with if I wasn't at the very front for Devon, if I was 2 or 3 rows back in the pit, I would have been content with that. I wasn't. I was front, which was fantastic. But Ankor is the one group where I just desperately, maybe I'd be okay with second. I mean, I've got all the priority access and stuff like that. And that's just the one that it's okay. This I'm very much looking forward to. I am very much looking forward to this one. May 5th, 2026. That's in less than 5 months, I think. I'm trying to do math, but I'm not very good at it. I am hyped up. That is going to be a great concert. And yes, I got the meet and greet. I'm going to get to meet the band. That's crazy. I have a postcard right here. Let's see if I can take this off without ripping it. I've got this. This has been sitting here or hanging here since I got my White Dragon t-shirt. It came with it. And I've been looking at this picture every day because I sit at this desk every day. And I've been looking at this picture for, I don't know when I got that shirt, a year and a half ago. And just waiting for them to announce a North American tour. And finally, they're coming to the United States and Philadelphia on May 5th, which is a day I don't have to work. So I am taking off work that day, and I will camp out as long as I have to at Theater of Living Arts. I'll get a cheesesteak from Jim's if I have to. And that'll be my lunch, breakfast, and dinner. In that order. Okay, now I'm getting a little crazy, but you get my point. The other band that I also bought tickets for. Now, this was actually, what's funny about this was that this is part of a festival, kind of, but an indoor type festival. And tickets for this, and I'm only going for one band, but tickets for this were double what I paid for, again, the meet and greet, the ticket, and the priority access for Ankor. I mean, my budget for that was $400. I would have paid up to that much. Maybe, dude, I don't even know. Maybe even more for all of that. But, that's... But anyways, so September of next year, Prague Power USA is in Atlanta. And my mom and I have been fans, me more than my mom, because I listen to this group very, very often on my way to work, on my way home from work, when I'm working on stuff at work. I do a lot of working, by the way, in case I haven't mentioned. But I've been listening to this group. They're called Threshold. I've done some podcast episodes about them on this channel in the past, on Pits and Riffs. I even had a series about 5 years ago where I just pulled a bunch of Threshold songs into a list. and basically made them into videos like heaviest threshold songs, best threshold songs, my favorite threshold songs, the Rubicon and where all the songs come from. The parts of the lyrics that are from different songs. Like I went that deep. I'm a big Threshold fan. I've been a Threshold fan since 2018 was when I discovered them. So I've been waiting for them to tour the US for 7 years. And finally, it'll have been 8 years. But finally, in 2026, in September, they're playing at Prague Power USA. And I got my tickets to see them perform on day one of Prague Power USA in Atlanta. Man, what a time to be alive. I'm telling you, like, I don't listen to many musical artists, if you can't tell. That's why my podcast episodes are more or less about the same 7 or 8 bands. Dream Theater, I've seen live. Devin Townsend, I've seen live twice, front row, both times. I've seen Dream Theater live front row once, and like third row a couple times as well. Volbeat, seen them front row, seen them I think 4 times overall, 3 or 4 times, maybe only 3. I don't remember for sure. Ghost, I've seen them 5 times. I know that. Spiritbox, I've seen them 4 total times. Who am I missing? That's pretty much it. Those are my favorites. And then Ankor and Threshold. I have not seen either of them live. And those were the last 2 that I haven't seen live out of all the artists that I listen to. Rush, obviously. I've seen Rush live 9 times. And I am not seeing them live next summer. The prices for that are ridiculous. And it's not Rush. It's not Neil Peart. I'm sorry. But finally, Ankor and Threshold are coming to the United States. And I will get to see, hopefully, both of them. I always say, hopefully, I always knock on wood and all that because you never know about things, and I always like, knock on wood, okay, because some shows get canceled. I've been to, I've had tickets for shows that have gotten canceled or postponed before to dates that I then couldn't attend, so, but I am hopeful, I am very hopeful, and I am very glad that I have tickets to see both of these bands. For the first time in my life. 2026, man. If those 2 concerts set the tone for the year for me, then that's going to be a great freaking year. This was a great freaking year. Like, just putting a bow on this year, right? Like, all the concerts that I've seen this year, all the music that's come out this year that I listen to, that I really enjoy, like, go back to February. Parasomnia comes out by Dream Theater. That same day that album comes out, I listened to that album 5 times on the day it came out. And then I got to see Dream Theater that night in Philadelphia. And that was a great concert. And I brought my parents to that. My parents, who took me to concerts growing up. I bought the tickets for that one. I took them to that concert. Then a month later, Tsunami Sea comes out, and that's a great album. And then a month after that, I get to see Spiritbox live, and they play a lot of that album live. They didn't play as much live as they did. Well, maybe they did. I don't remember how many Tsunami Sea songs they played live in April versus this month, but they played a lot off that album. In May, like not even 3 weeks later, I got to see Devin Townsend live, front row, with Tesseract, who now I'm a really big fan of and have done a deep dive into their music. In June, God of Angels Trust comes out by Volbeat, and that's another killer album. Just fantastic album, start to finish. There's not a weak song off that album. July, I get to see Ghost and Shinedown on back-to-back nights. August, I get to see Volbeat in Camden. September, I get to see Dream Theater again play Parasomnia live in Reading. And I vlogged that on this channel and it got blocked, which sucks. But, I still have the footage and whatever. I get to use it for myself, which is kind of the purpose anyway. Nothing in October or November. But then December, I get to see Spiritbox live. And now I get to order tickets for Ankor and Threshold. What a year for music. I mean, out of all those months, there are 3 months that I didn't see a concert and new music that by bands that I love didn't come out. January, October, November. That's crazy. What a year for music. Like, just crazy. But anyways, that's going to be it for today's episode. Thank you guys very much for watching. And I'll see you in 2026, baby. Peace out, broskies.